Yo, what is up, potty people? Welcome to the Apex Arena podcast, where the only currency that we ask for is your time. So my name is Jordan, and this is my partner in crime, Koosty. So how are you doing? How's everything going?
Hello, yeah, it's all good. It's nice weather outside and nice weather to be sitting indoors playing video games.
Not so nice to be sat recording a podcast when it's scorching hot in your tiny little room like it is in mine.
No, we've got some time to talk about it there.
Well, we've got plenty of time. That's literally all that we have is time. So, for all of you who are new here, which I'd imagine a lot of you will be, so this is going to be the YouTube podcast, which you can see on the screen here. But if you would rather, we're going to also be recording this for Spotify. So if you don't want to see my ugly mug, obviously Koosties is pretty cool. As you can see, he hasn't got a camera there at the moment. So we came up with this awesome French-inspired photo. And vice versa, if you'd rather watch a video, feel free to check out the YouTube. It's above. It's at Jordan Cecil. So come check that out.
I'm more of a Spotify listener anyway, so that's where I get all my podcasts from.
There we go. Yeah, I've always kind of gravitated towards video, but for me, this is like new territory. It's something, I don't know, it's spicing up. I've never thought to do a podcast, so this is always going to be a little bit exciting. This is going to be mainly focused on the arena for Apex Legends, for those of you who might be unaware. But we'll also kind of like delve into other aspects of the BR, kind of just the legends, the lore, all things Apex, basically. We just want to cover all grounds as best as we can with kind of more of a centric focus on the arena. So
yeah, we thought there was no other sort of podcast or videos out there that focused mainly on the arena. It's a mode that we have been looking forward to for ages. As soon as they announced it, we were right on it. It's just something we thought we would mostly like to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they announced it maybe, like 3 weeks to a month before. And for that entire period, we were both just talking about it endlessly every day, kind of theorizing what it could be like. And then obviously somebody leaked something and we were like, oh, so it's kind of going to be a little bit like Valorant, obviously with round-based and stuff. So it's just been nothing but exciting news. But yeah, we're going to start off the podcast by just talking about the arena in general, so a little bit about what the game mode is and what our expectations were coming into the arena for Season 9 and like how that kind of is separated from what we've actually experienced from having played it for around a week or so now. So
yeah, exactly. Because a few days before it was released, we decided we're going to do this podcast because we're just so excited about it, which wants to talk about it. So we got each other to write down sort of our expectations, our worries for what could not meet those expectations, and also just what we were actually really excited for. And we wrote that down as in a form of a little list, so we would have something to discuss straight away in this initial podcast.
Did you say a little list? I might have written a few too many things. I was a little bit kind of like a kid at Christmas. The expectation, the hype got the better of me, and I was just like, I got my biro out. And do you know when you go on one of those mad sprees where you can't stop writing? That was pretty much me. So my parents must have hated me at Christmas. So yeah, let's start off with a couple of expectations that we had for the arena then. Actually, do you want to introduce the arena bit? Talk about what the game mode is? And then I'll jump in with my own kind of like tidbits as well.
Yeah, sure. So what it does, it takes all the legends from Apex Legends and puts them into this new game mode where it is a 3v3 sort of team deathmatch style thing.
Action-packed.
The first three people to kill the other three people wins the round, and it's round based. So you have it's best of, well, it's first to two ahead. So if you get to 3 points, three wins in a row, and they don't have any wins, you'll win the match. But if you get to 3 wins and they have 2 wins, for example, then you'll have to keep going until you're 2 ahead.
Yeah, you get a tiebreaker, don't you? I always like it because it's quite, I don't know, it's quite exhilarating when you see that tiebreaker because you're like, okay, we really need to up our ante because you might have been ahead and you're thinking, oh, we're comfortable. This next round we win because you tend to use all your supplies and go all out for that round, don't you? And then if you lose that and it hits the tiebreaker, you're back to the drawing board and you're like, we're going to have to re-strategize again. So it's it's kind of like a game of chess to an extent, isn't it?
Yeah, the way you say resources and using all your resources, that's because they've played upon the idea of like a CS:GO, Valorant type you buy your things at the start of the round, but it's not just buying your guns.
I was gonna
It's
say,
buying the guns. It's buying the meds. It's also buying the abilities that your characters use, and you only start out with a limited amount, which means that spending your currency wisely is really important, and also
yeah.
collecting currency in the game is really important. There's little currency bins that you can pick up from, and there's also bins where you can pick up meds during the round. So it's not just
It's
a
not
direct fight.
just a
You've got to
repeat
think
of
about what you're
CS:GO
doing.
or Valorant, and that's the thing. You've played a fair bit of CS:GO, haven't you? And I've touched upon Valorant. I played a couple of games of that, not a whole lot, but yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong on this one. But obviously in Apex, every round your gun resets, so you have to think about different guns for different rounds. Whereas with CS, you buy them right at the start. Is it similar deal, or is it Valorant might be a little bit different? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so CS is first round's always the pistol round.
Yeah,
You can't really afford
is that what
anything.
they
You
call
buy
eco,
you have
isn't it?
well no so you have your pistols, and then
Yeah,
if you win that round, you'll be able to afford more guns. But if you've lost that round, you might want to go for an eco round where
right.
an eco round is okay. We won't spend any money this round so that we can have enough money for the next round and have a chance of winning next round, because
Okay, I
otherwise
like that. Yeah.
you're not buying much every round and you're not having quite enough, whereas the other team
So that's
are
kind of
winning every round because they have enough.
your team cohesively recognizing that you're at a disadvantage because you haven't got a lot of funds. So what you do is you just say you hold on to those funds, which you kind of do in the Apex arena as well, right? Not to the same degree where you just go all Mozambiques or all P2020s, but I have had a few times where maybe I've been using R301, I fully kitted it out, we lose that round, and then I'm like, I kind of want to save a little bit of money, so I'll go for the vault the next round or something along those
Yeah, that's
lines.
fair. That's the thing. The thing with CS is you carry across the guns, like you were saying. So
Yeah.
in CS, you might kill someone, you might pick up their gun so that you can have it for the next round.
Yeah, that is cool.
In Yeah, but in this arenas, you don't carry anything over. So you've got to really think whether you're going to spend it for that round. You're going to how much because you're going to spend on those guns and meds, because nothing's coming over. It
Touching
doesn't
on
matter
that
whether you win or
though,
lose.
I love the fact that in game, do you know when you kill someone? Say that it's been like a battle of attrition. You've both been, pot shotting each other, doing loads of poke damage, and then you've expended all your meds. I think the really cool thing is if you do then go on to kill someone, they drop all their meds and stuff as well. So it kind of
Yeah.
gives you a second wind, right? Another chance to kind of get back into the battle, heal up a little bit. So I love that. I don't think that is the same case in CS, is it? Or in Valorant
No,
even.
no, and it's also the thought that okay,
Oh, hello?
the gut.
Oh,
Hello?
you might have cut out for a second. Yeah, go on.
Okay. Are we gonna? We don't have much money this round, so are we gonna spend our money on kitting out a gun, or
Yeah.
are we gonna spend it on a lesser gun, or are we gonna spend it on a lot of meds and hopefully
Yeah.
pick up a gun during the round? I don't know. There's lots of options. That's the
Yeah,
thing. There is lots of options.
we're gonna talk about this later, aren't we? Actually, so one of the topics that we're planning on, I need to add a couple of topics here. Actually, I'll leave it. I'll just explain what the topics are. I should have added them next time I do this podcast. This is me just being a little bit helpless. I was meant to add them in text at the top right, so I'll talk about what we're gonna discuss today. So one of the topics we had actually thought about talking about was the first weapons that we go for, or that first round, and how crucial that is kind of for the rest of the game going forward. So that's going to be one of our topics. Another topic, like I've said, is the arena expectations. The third topic will be the Bocek bow, and then the last topic will be about Valkyrie. So let's get into our arena expectations. Do you want to kickstart, or shall I go off on the first one?
Yeah. So I've put I've gone into it sort of saying this is sort of what I want. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't exactly know what I want, but
Yeah,
this is what
exactly.
I wanted from the game. Is it supplying that, or is it doing something different, or is it doing neither? So
Right, gotcha.
what I've said, what I'd like to say for starters is I come from CS:GO background, a lot of Overwatch as well. Games that
Yeah.
have a something that you've got to do. So, what's it called?
Like
A
an objective of some sort.
objective. There you go. That's the one. So
And
you've
as
got an
well as that, they're
objective.
very round based, aren't they? Whereas I come from more of a background of like battle royales, first person team deathmatch shooters, which are a little bit more kind of focused on the long term game. So yeah, carry on. What were you going to say? Sorry.
Exactly. So what the initial thing that came to my head was the length of the games. Okay.
Yeah.
So when they said you can win 3 rounds and that can win you the whole game, That was
Yeah.
like that was sort of did send alarm bells in my head, because they the reason they said that is because it can feel really bad if you've got bad teammates or it's going really badly and you're getting absolutely stomped. That doing that for more than 3 rounds can feel really bad,
Yeah.
and I get that. But it can also, in CS, in competitive CS, there are six. You have to win 16 rounds to win.
It's a long game. Yeah, I've seen
It
people
can be like
playing in it.
yeah,
It's
it can be
tense.
over an hour long, and yeah, it can be
Christ.
feel really bad to get stomped. But on the same page, when you're then having a really close game that lasts really long, winning that game feels like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's
The
amazing.
adrenaline kicks in. You have that euphoric feeling. We've had a game like that, haven't we? Where, like we said, the whole game through, it was like a back and forth tug of war where kind of we would win a round, then they'd win two, and we were like, oh crap. And then obviously you'd feel all dejected. Then you'd go on to kind of like adapt and strategize again, and then you'd bounce back. It's such a nice feeling.
Exactly. So that's what I was nervous about.
Yeah.
Was it lacking the competitiveness and excitement due to that length.
Right.
Um,
Gotcha. I see.
and I think I've been proved wrong and right. I think when you win a game straight away, it's like, okay, fine. When you lose a
Yeah.
game straight away in 3 rounds, it can be like, okay, that's fine.
Hmm.
Those really close games that go on for ages, actually, they do go on for quite a long time, because
Yeah.
when you're really close, and that really does. Like, I've been in places when I know all my team's dead. I know the last two people alive on their team have no meds and they're really low, and
Yeah.
your hand is shaking. You're trying to focus
Yeah,
on
because
winning
you
that
know
round.
you need to win that round. It's such a like pivotal moment if you do that. I kind of agree with you along those lines. So that wasn't one of my concerns actually. I didn't even think to write that down. For me, when I thought about it, so obviously like the 3 rounds and you win. I mentioned this to you previously, but I always liked the idea of having not enemies, but having teams against you that varied in skill level, because I didn't want it to constantly be like stressful environment, you know, where you're just constantly getting pooped on and that everybody would just be destroying you over and over. So I always like the idea of, oh, maybe this team that I'm playing now, we are better than, but I did want there to be some sort of level playing field, hence why I like the you've got to win two or more sort of
Yeah.
aspect to it.
Well,
For
that's what a
sure.
few of the streamers did say, who got the early playtest, and they
Yeah.
said, "Oh, it might not be what you're looking for this game, because it's not necessarily just team deathmatch where you can just jump in and kill each other for free, you know."
Do you think
And
it's
I was just thinking, that is exactly not what I don't want. I don't want just a
yeah.
team deathmatch style thing. I want
Just
something
yeah,
with
I want
some
something a
sort
little
of
bit more
competitive element.
tactical. Same. Do you think it's fair to say that maybe the arena at its current state caters a little bit more to the casual player? Not by casual, I don't mean that they're not competitive in their nature, but it caters more to people that are just looking for a bit of fun and perhaps don't have the highest skill gap, whereas that for those that have like crazy high skill in the game, obviously like the pros or people that stream it for like endless hours per day, it might not be as exhilarating to them because obviously they're just going to pub stomp every game, which is obviously the concern that you brought up in the first place.
Yeah, and I think by adding a ranked mode like this, I think they've said they're going to, or there's a lot of chat over. They will. I'm sure they'll add a ranked mode to this game,
Yeah, I can't wait.
and then that'll be
To a
great.
degree.
But also uh, they might increase length, add more rounds to it. This is literally, we're talking about this game after I say it's a game, it's not even a game, it's a game mode. So we're talking about
Yeah.
this game mode after it came out a few days
Well,
ago.
it's literally in its infancy, isn't it? It's not a fair judgment just to be like, oh, it doesn't have long-term potential without knowing what kind of route the developers want to take it in, or what kind of route the players take it in terms of meta and stuff, which we'll talk about in another episode.
Yeah, well, you'd imagine they would, in a competitive, like it's always the same in games.
Yeah.
The casual mode, which is what we've got at the moment, is shorter. It's more everyone playing
Yes.
around, not positional. You're just killing each other.
Yeah.
But you think about CS or Overwatch, which has a casual mode. Think about League of Legends, all these ones that have casual
Yeah. You
modes.
look at Valorant,
The
all them.
the casual ones are always shorter, and then
Yeah.
they might make it okay. First to win 7 rounds instead of 3. To beat the competitive, and that might make it even more exciting, or it might not make it more exciting. You don't know.
Yeah, that's very defined actually. When you play the battle royale, one of the first thing you notice between ranked and just the casual mode, when you play casual, obviously your first initial reaction is, oh, we should just W key this and we should push into teams, build upon a gun skill, kind of, go straight for the hot drops and stuff along those lines. Whereas as soon as you play ranked, the game slows down a lot because teams start landing on the edges. Obviously, people are more focused on getting KP, kill points, and then obviously they want to get better positioning, so they'll be a little bit more tactical about the way they push and not just third partying as well. Third partying is way more rife in ranked. So yeah, there are all these factors. So one of the one of the concerns that I did have would the ammo would be quite scarce. So I was really kind of fearful that we would go into a round.
That's fair. Your worst thing in any game is when you run out of ammo.
Like, it's painful, right?
You even getting third party, you'd prefer to be third party all day long than run out of ammo.
Than just run out of ammo, because there are times where you could have killed someone. I remember having an instance in BR where this guy was just running through an open field in front of me, and I was trying to, I was like, he's coming towards you. And I was like, I just can't shoot him because I have no ammo left in any weapon. And I thought that might translate into the arena, because I thought, oh, if you're playing loads of rounds, if you start off with like 200 ammo, and I like to use kind of full auto weapons like the R99, R301, and I tend to just, even if I'm not certain I'll do any damage, I'll shoot in that general direction anyway, like pre-fire a lot, because sometimes you'll crack someone so quickly doing it. And I thought, what if I run out of ammo here? Is this just going to kill my experience? But
okay, that's fair.
So what I've actually learned from doing that is that doesn't seem to be the case. I don't think I've had and you can say if you disagree, if you've had any other experiences, but I've not had a single experience of playing Arena where I've run out of ammo. Not once have I been like, oh crap, I'm short on ammo. I feel like the length of the rounds, the engagements, they've just been adapted and timed perfectly by developers. Seems like they've nailed it on the head, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing they thought about, because it's just so frustrating to run out of ammo. It's like, it doesn't show that you're worse than the other player. It doesn't show they're better than you. No skill. There's no skill involved. It
kills the skill gap, doesn't it? Yeah, and that's what I mean. That goes on to another thing I'll talk about, like the battle of attrition. But yeah, if you've got another one, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'll say when I'm finding out it's just a 3v3.
Yeah.
I thought it could make it so that getting a clutch, it doesn't feel as impactful. Okay, so like in other games when you're 1v5, 1v6 even in like Overwatch, I thought
true.
To being 3v3 could make it so that if you actually manage to win that 3v3, it's not necessarily as exciting as,
because obviously your teammates might have done some damage along the way as well, which then takes
exactly.
away from
but
that.
I think I actually do think 3v3 works, because I think it would be too much for too many people, and I think it's hard because the health pool in Apex is really high. So actually getting a clutch as one person against any more than 3 people would be like, you'd be out of this world. You'd have to be
insane. You'd have to be Warlord level, wouldn't you?
So that's got disproved straight away, I think.
I think as well, the nice thing about 3v3 is that you've not got too many angles to focus on. And the thing is, it aligns really nicely, I think, with the map design. Because if you look at all the maps we've talked about every time we play, we're like, are we going left, mid, or right? Yeah, so if you've got 3 players, generally, it only gives them space to take angles either on the outside, in the middle, or left or right? So I think that's super cool that it kind of aligns with that. But most of the time, anyway, I noticed that teams stick together, actually, which is that's a topic for another day. But I think that's a cool thing anyway.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
That's something that rarely happens in the battle royale where you need to stick together.
Yeah, for sure. Plus the added thing of not getting third partied as well, which what makes the 3v3 so much cooler in this, and it makes the clutches feel so much more important, because there are times, obviously in the BR, where you might clutch up in the 3v3. Your 2 teammates might go down, then you might go on and kill the 3 players, and then boom, another team comes in and just finish you off, and it just kills that elation that you have. Whereas
we've had times when we've beaten 4 teams on the trot, or who are third party, fourth party, and then the 5th party's come along and killed us. And you should be really excited to be able to kill 3 teams with no meds and without medding up and that sort of thing. And then, but you're not, because it just takes away from it.
You just don't get time to celebrate, do you? Whereas at least after this, the round's over, and you can just have that 50 seconds like in between rounds just to talk about what you did and share your experiences and like compliment each other and congratulate each other on what you've just done, right? Which is a nice feeling. So another one that I've got then, so this was quite a big one for me. So I thought that maybe games would be won and lost around the supply bins and the just supply. What do you call those canisters?
Yeah.
The little blue alien supply thingies. So I thought games might get won or lost like around those, and that there wouldn't be much room for like creativity, for flanking, for getting nice positions, verticality. I thought everyone would just like bomb it towards those supply bins and have a fight, and that might be it.
Okay, yeah. Well, that sort of fits in with my next one. I'll say my next one as well, because that sort of fits in.
Sure.
I've said the how much impact being creative has on and the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it was
really
like,
nicely.
Yeah, I thought that you've got all these legends, you've got all these really creative things. Straight away Watson comes into my mind because that's how I play mostly. But the thought of being able to bunker down somewhere with this cool strat, or taking this specific weapon and going, okay, we'll do this round. I thought maybe it would just become, okay, we'll just take potshot weapons and R99, and we'll get some damage on them, then we'll jump in and we'll kill them. Or that's all it comes down to.
And that's kind of the meta in the BR, isn't it? You notice that a lot. As soon as somebody maybe cracks another player, the instinct is in BR, because you need to kill a team very quickly before a third party comes along, is to be like, right, we need to push this. And whether you win or lose, that's kind of like the be-all and end-all of that fight. Whereas you've got a little bit more leeway to do those pot shots and to mix up weapons, have creativity in the way that you flank and stuff. It's a longer game, right? It's a lot more thoughtful.
Yeah, and I think the more you play it, the more you'll come up with more little strategies, like, let's try this bunker comp on top of here, or let's try all going charge rifles, taking all their armor down, or let's try the shotguns and having this close range fight. There's lots of
you start to realize kind of like what positions and what cover you like taking, because there are certain like, especially on, was it Mirage's Party Crasher map, there's like on the right hand side you can climb up onto the boat, right? And there's like this nice little box, you can see through the gap of it. And I've started using that a lot more, and I'm noticing it catches my enemies off guard. So little bits of creativity like that you discover yourself, I don't know, it just makes the game super exciting, because when you do down someone using that, you're like, wow, I've had to actually think of that. I've actually analysed the map and taken in my surroundings a little bit more.
Yeah, but on your initial point of the fights around the bins, I do think that it's really important to get the currency early on.
It is, for sure.
But it doesn't define the game mode. It's like, it's not, okay, let's go here and fight over this over and over and over again. There's, because there's so many legends and so many different weapons, you can fight around those in very different ways. That's the thing. It's not always there. You might take the high ground with the sniper. You might take a shotgun and go somewhere. It's not necessarily like, let's get auto rifles and go straight in.
I have another interesting topic that we'll talk about on another podcast sometime, similar to this, whereby I was thinking kind of the game mode as a collective in its entirety. Like, even though, yes, it's got kind of a buy and sell system, right? Like, I obviously was a little bit worried that might kind of impact the way you play the game. But I've kind of noticed that even if you buy all these different items, weapons, upgrade them, you could still stick with an RE45 and you'd still go and win a game, right? I don't feel like that kind of... it doesn't lock you up. You're not cuffed to that game mode. It's like, as long as you're a good player, as long as you're a little bit intelligent, you don't have to rely on the bins or the healing. You just have to kind of think a little bit more outside the box sometimes, which is really nice.
Yeah, and because you do have all the abilities, you can just do really wacky stuff. You can,
of course,
go octane and jump in when they're low. Or
we tried that, didn't we?
It works. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
Mostly didn't in our case last night when we played. I think myself and another teammate might have had this crazy idea to throw a jump pad down. We dived in. As we get in, both of them are healing up batteries, and they pull it off just as we land, and we get lit up in seconds. It was a massacre. But yeah, have you got any others?
They sort of feed in sort of the same thing. There's games becoming too one-dimensional because of that because of that lack of.
So it kind of ties into the same kind of point. Yeah, for sure.
But I think it works. And last one I put was aim and positioning are the only things that become relevant.
Okay.
And that was on the back
that's
of
an interesting one.
a lot of people saying, okay, this game is pot shot them until they run out of meds, and whoever runs out of meds first loses the fight.
You mean as opposed to like abilities and kind of?
Yeah, and no creativity in that sort of way. It's just like, okay, we both go, we look at each other across the map.
Oh, and just pot shot each other. I see.
We head glitch. We take shots, and then we push in and fight, and then it's that every round. That's what I was scared of. But I don't think it has become that. And I know it's only early days, but
can I say something?
Yeah.
I feel like that point that you made would be most pertinent against like pro players, and that I think is probably the biggest qualm or the biggest issue that they have with the game mode in general, is that for them, obviously, because they come from a background where, especially in the BR, especially when they play competitive, you pick an area, don't you? And you don't bunker down in that area, but you look for the opportunities to pot shot. And I can imagine that kind of thought process and that idea of like playing would translate into arena for them, and it could cause a negative experience, and it could cause them to think, oh, all you do in this is pot shot, poke damage until one cracks the other, then you push in, which it then becomes a little bit systematic. Whereas for the casual players, yes, like we think about it to a degree, right? Because we play the game a lot. But I think people who play a lot less than us and are still pretty decent players might just play kind of less pot shots and just run around more, use abilities more.
Yeah, and I think there's a problem where people, when we watch players playing, we watch pro players, which is obviously what you do. It's, you know, if you're into sports, if you're into tennis, you watch pro tennis players.
It's the best way to learn, isn't it? Just modeling yourself on their experiences.
So, but it means that the pros talk about the way the game is, and then people like us who are sort of good but not pro.
Yeah.
Right? But far from pro.
I see where you're going with it, yeah.
We go, okay, it's not good because they said it's not good. Or this isn't how it should be because they said that's not how it should be.
We hang on their words, don't we? We idolize these people.
You should just play the game and see how it works out.
See what works for you, right? Because at the end of the day, just because they say one thing works, and there are some aspects that I fully agree with, they're completely 100% right. Bocek, which we'll mention in a minute. But obviously, like you say, it's not the gospel, is it? Just because they say one thing doesn't mean that your experience will be the same.
No, like for example, there's a poll here. It's by a guy called J Mails. It was on on YouTube. Shout out at him.
Shout out J Mails at YouTube.
He did a poll. He said, "Does Arena need objectives or to stay like it is?" So by objectives, it means like a bomb to plant or
so kind of like in Call of Duty where you've got kind of where you go and defuse the bomb. What's that game called? Search and Destroy. How did I forget that? That was my childhood.
Yeah, exactly. So the options he gave on the poll were needs objectives, improve on what we already have, or bring objectives into the game and make it better.
Yeah.
So first thing I noticed is he didn't actually even add an option to stay like it is, because
he assumes it needs extra.
He just assumed that it needs changing, right? Because of maybe his experience of it, or for him from watching other people.
Yeah.
But you also see that the most voted for thing by 68% is improve what we already have.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily mean people want it improved. It means people like what we already have and want it worked on and want more of it.
Yeah, they want more of it, for sure.
Yeah, and then you go down to the comments and it's just people going, I think the players should play like this in it, or I really like it, or let's try this strategy. People should try this strategy. It's people talking about it.
People talking about it rather than for sure.
Arena is great. It's already really good. No, I like fighting and not objectives. I haven't played for a while and I really enjoy the game, but it's like that's what
I think a lot of when it comes to when I see polls like that, I always think the person that's made that poll is clearly like very immersed in the game, is very passionate about it, and that's great. It's nice that they want to improve and they want to give these ideas, but the issue I see with that is that a lot of these creators don't align with the casual player who just wants to play and have fun, right? They don't even think about the bigger picture. I see so many comments before we mention the bow, but with regards to the bow saying, oh, it's so fun, it's so good, I've just killed 3 people. Whereas like the content creator would always be thinking from the analytical perspective of this thing is OP, it's not fair, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I think along those lines.
Yeah, well, it shows that people are really enjoying this game mode. And
yeah, I love it.
Before we move on,
yeah,
I just wanted to say that this is a game mode added to a game. It's not a new game.
Exactly.
And people say, yeah, it is. People are working on it as if it's a new game and as if it's this one of their main focuses, which is awesome. But it is just a game mode added to a game that has potential to potentially be a game.
You know that saying, no publicity is bad publicity? I kind of equate that to no extra game mode is a bad game mode. Even if it fundamentally is a bad game mode, it's still extra content. It's still Respawn as developers thinking outside of the box and thinking of new ways to try and engage the audience that they already have and introduce new players to the game, right? Because some people...
This is on release. This is like...
Exactly.
For a few days... There's so much room for expansion of like Absolutely. New maps and new ways to play it, and there's no big bugs. Like
there's nothing.
It works nicely.
The servers, perhaps we won't talk about the servers.
That's
but the
every game ever when they release a game.
For sure.
Release game mode, it messes with the servers a bit, but the actual game
it runs smoothly. And if anything, if anything, I think the game mode, kind of like the animations. It gives you so much more diversity with the pool of legends you can use. So yeah, I agree. I think it's nice to have new content. It's nice that we can kind of just explore a new avenue, because there might be some players who don't necessarily like battle royales, but they love the lore, they love the background, they love the legends, they love the weapons, they love the movement that they see other players using, but they're just not confident with BR because they're so used to playing like TDM and stuff. So for them, this is another avenue for them to explore, right? Which is great.
Yeah, and I think the reason I had to make that point is because when a new game comes out and it's buggy, that's all everyone talks about is how buggy it is, right?
Yeah, of
course. But when a new game comes out and it's like polished, it's nice.
Nobody ever mentions it. There's nothing.
Just talk about whether it's good, the actual game. You know, it's like
I think this
also works for nothing.
Segues really nicely. So I'm just going to list a few. I'm just going to shoot them out there, just some of the positives that I've taken from playing Arena. So I've got my little handy notepad here, so I might as well just use this. So I'll just say a couple of them. You can say if you agree or not. So first of which, Battle of Attrition. So most people might see this as a negative aspect, like we said with poke damage and stuff. But for me, I like the fact that every bullet or every heal you use counts. You've got to be very methodical with when to shoot, like what angle you take to shoot, not to give away your position. Obviously, as well with healing, like you've got to be very decisive on when to use that heal. Or kind of, like, there might be some times where you've lost like half a shield, but you only have like three or four shields, or you only have 1 battery left. In that instance, you've got to be very decisive on whether or not to use that battery, right? So I love that. I think it's really cool.
They say it's all pot shotting, but you could just hide and not take any damage.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another strategy if you want to, right? Which is cool. Next is flank routes and verticality. I love it. I think the map design, particularly for the 2 new maps, I've only played, was it the Party Crasher and what's the other one called? The outdoorsy ones.
The big field with the teleports.
The big field. It's something teleporter, isn't it? Something runner. Phase runner. Phase runner. Ah, yeah, the phase runner map. We should know this, but yeah, the phase runner map. I think it's cool that like they vary so differently. So like the Party Crasher has a lot of verticality. You're going like up levels of the boat, down levels. You're going into like kind of rooms, cabins and stuff. And then you've kind of got like the outskirts, which is a little bit more open and has a lot less cover. And then you've got the Phase Runner, which is massive. It's like a huge landscape. It's very vast. And you've got like a quick means by taking the portal to get to where you need to be. Or you can just like run across the open pretty much. So, and there's not so much verticality other than climbing the rocks, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, that's when I was playing Valk, that's one thing I noticed was there was much vertical places to be in that map. So yeah, that's why I decided to play somebody else, because it was just her use for a jetpack is to get up high, and then nowhere to get high to get to. Really, it was.
And that's why it's a positive, right? Because
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
it's a negative because obviously you haven't got maybe Valk isn't the most optimal for that map. But then that gives you so much options because then you can go and choose a different legend that is maybe more suited. Maybe someone like Mirage who doesn't have any verticality, but can send decoys out everywhere in the open, which makes him a smaller target. So win-win. A couple of others then. So first one, it's a true test of skill. So there's no third parties. So I think we kind of touched on that already. So it's good practice for the BR. Even if you don't like it as a standalone mode and you don't think you'll get much time out of it, I think it's amazing that you can just use it as a warm-up instead of the firing range if you're bored of just shooting at inanimate objects.
For sure, like I jumped into. I've had one or two games of BR because the arenas wasn't working.
Yeah.
And as soon as I jumped into BR, one of my weakest things used to be like the fights when I was really tense. I'd tense up and I would miss my shot.
And when you're not warmed up or something, right?
I was playing arena as well. I win in every fight.
Yeah, it builds confidence.
Because I was so confident, right?
Yeah, it's good. It translates really well. Next thing I've got is non-meta legends. So these are probably topics that we're going to branch out into in another podcast, more so. It's just kind of touching base with arena in general. Non-meta legends shine. So I think it gives, like I said, it diversifies the pool. Playstyle takes precedence, which breathes life into a wider pool of weaponry. So again, like the legends, you've got more weapons to choose from that you might not use in the BR, because say, for example, in the BR, you'd maybe use a sniper, like early game. You might not use it on Party Crasher because it's a smaller map. So you might use an RE45, which you would perhaps never use in the BR. So
yeah, and
cross-pollination.
I've been clicking on all different weapons every round.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, let's try this. You think there'd be a gun where it's like, okay, I want that gun every time, but the more I play, the more I'm like, oh, let's try Elsa this round, or let's try.
Can we agree on one thing?
G7 or what?
That word you just said right then. What gun did you just say?
G7.
That will never be used by me in any of the game modes.
I mean, I 1v3'd with the G7 the other day.
Yeah, I don't believe you. No, it's a lie. They must have, I don't know, they must have boosted your gun or something. Or they must have put a pool of players with like low SBMM. So yeah, we'll just disregard that one. G7 sucks. No, I'm kidding. If you like it, you like it. And then last one is just plenty of cover to disengage and heal behind. I think they've focused a lot on, obviously the BR has cover, which is great. But because it's a bigger map, you can't just put random objects like everywhere. Whereas at least in this game mode, I don't think they've put them randomly, but it's nice to see that you've got a rock there, or you've got a box that you can crouch behind here, you've got a big pillar, you've got a room you can not hide in, but run into, so...
Yeah, for sure. The maps are designed really well.
Very nice, yeah. It's hard to... Like, we've said a few negatives, right, as well, like, but I think there's so many positives as well, so it's nice to kind of have the dichotomy between the two.
Yeah, and even the where they've taken parts of the old maps, they've actually used really great bits of it.
Artillery's fun, yeah, really. It's a shame we've not played a couple of them. I think I don't know if they're in the rotation yet. We've only really played artillery of the old maps, I think, have we?
That's right, yeah. But like, that's great.
It's good, like, though. It's fun.
Do you go? There's a big decision that do you take the high ground or do you go to the
middle as well? Do you know what's interesting? In the BR, in that zone, where do you always land? Or where will you always go, pretty much?
The big
building. Whereas in this game mode, I find myself always running through the middle. I love going through the middle because it gives you so many options to see high. You've got the fences as cover. You've got like the side of that little kind of, I don't know, that bunker sort of thing to like cover you from. You can weave in and out of the bunkers for cover. So it's nice to like go through the same maps, basically, even though it's recycled, but kind of respect it from a different perspective. Christ, that was hard to say.
Sure. Yeah. And you see people going across the zip lines, and you can take pot shots of them from far away. So it's like they've got high ground, but they're also really in the open.
Those zip lines you wouldn't really have used all that much other than to get loot pretty much early before going back to the building, right? Whereas now people use that as their main route. That's kind of like they hold that ground. So many teams.
And I've used a few different legends. I've used Valk, works really well there because you can
Yeah.
jump straight up there. I've used Crypto, even though I've never played Crypto before ever. I've used him and I've put the drone
The
up
drone
by
kind
one
of
of the
yeah.
just put it up by one of the zip lines, and then I loot the other side of the map. At the same time, I know they're not up there because I've got my drone up there. So it's just like there's so many different ways you can use the legends and use the
Yeah.
map to your advantage. It's
And
great.
there's so much we haven't experienced still. Even though it's 3 maps, there's like so much more to learn about the map terrain, about the legends we can use, about the strategies, the different play styles. So I'm still excited. So I think that kind of wraps up everything pretty nicely in my mind, at least. Was there anything you wanted to touch upon before we kind of move on to the next topic?
I think we can save it for the next week.
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can go into. Because we mentioned like a few things that I think we could make as entire topics in themselves, right? So
definitely. Yeah.
let's go on to a little bit more of a structured topic then. Something that probably we won't talk about too much, but has been a highly contentious a highly contentious thing within the Apex community within the last few days, and that's the Bocek bow. So have you had a chance to use it much yet?
I have. First time I picked it up,
you're like, I have. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, first time I picked it up, I 1v3'd a team. Even though I don't think that was in BR, and I don't think I've ever 1v3'd a team before.
So I'm sure you have. You've been modest.
It's pretty good. And yeah, that was my first experience of many where I pick up the bow and people are dead before they know what's going on.
yeah, that kind of seems to be the general consensus. Yeah, so I had a few games where I tested out the bow. I was wanting to make a couple of videos on it anyway, and I noticed that I would miss a lot of shots. Granted, my aim's not always going to be perfect, right? But for every 10 shots that I would miss, I would just nail on one. I would just hit one shot, boom, it would do a crazy amount of damage. So I'll let you guys know the breakdown of what the damages are, because I wanted to know myself. So apparently it's 70 damage per body shot. And then
similar to Sentinel, right?
It's practically, yeah, funny enough. Let me show this to the camera if I can. I don't know if you can. Oh, God. Okay, no, you can't. It's blown out of proportion. The exposure's too high. But I made a direct comparison with the Sentinel, and Sentinel also does 70 damage as a body shot.
Well, that's probably one of my most used guns. And
yeah,
when you hit a shot with the Sentinel, which is not easy to start with, and you only have a few bullets, and you have a big break between every shot you take, you're like, oh yeah, nice, I hit a shot. We can do something with this because that's a lot of damage in one go.
Now, I don't know the headshot multiplier for the Sentinel. However, for the Bocek, 123 damage per headshot. Now, how much does a person have as health with just like a basic white armor? Isn't that like 150? If I'm correct, is it 25 per armor and you have 100 base health? I think that's right, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So you're doing 123 damage of their entire health and armor. So basically, one more shot by anyone, or even just a tap with the bow, they're dead. Done for. Yeah. That's them out of the game. Can I just interject before we go on to like, I know this is gonna sound like we're spiraling down like a negative like analogy or not analogy assessment of the Bocek bow. Can I just mention a couple of really cool things I think about it first? Start off on a positive note. So one of the cool things, so I was doing a little bit of research and I found a fun fact that so when Octane is stimming while using the bow, do you have any idea how he uses it?
His mouth?
yeah, no, you're right, 100% right. So he actually draws the bowstring with his teeth when he goes to. It's super cool, right? I know that there's a few more kind of combinations like that.
I've got to see you do this now.
I couldn't find it. I looked on YouTube. I couldn't see anyone, but a lot of people are like drawing pictures of it. So they said they've been in the firing range. They've been using his bow while stimming, and he uses it like you can see the arrow going through his teeth.
Wow.
So I thought that was a pretty neat thing. It's cool, right?
Yeah, cool.
The next thing that well, it's kind of something. Someone brought this topic up on Reddit, and they actually mentioned. Do you know the arrows? Like when you pick them up off the ground, it has kind of like a yellow glittery glow, right?
Yeah.
So if you've noticed that, well, someone actually mentioned it as a serious topic that was affecting them, because they're both epileptic. And they suffer from a thing called sparkleophobia, which you may have probably never heard of. But it's essentially a phobia of glitter. But when you combine that phobia of glitter with epilepsy, they were saying that it was triggering them to kind of have kind of spasms. It was affecting, obviously, I don't know, kind of like it was not triggering a seizure, but kind of like the precursors to that, where you'd feel very like nauseous. You wouldn't be able to like focus. Your eyes would kind of glaze over and stuff. But I know that sounds like doom and gloom, but actually one of the developers commented down below on this Reddit thread, and he said, we're going to really look into this. He wasn't aware it was a thing, and they're going to take it seriously, and they're going to broach that in the next meeting. And to me, I thought that was such a nice thing for the developers to do, and it shows that they genuinely care about their community, to actually just troll through the entirety of Reddit, and when somebody actually offers constructive criticism and something that genuinely affects them, they were willing to interject and take it seriously. So I thought that was awesome.
I feel like they do. I feel like they really do this.
Yeah.
You know,
Respawn are great.
Yeah, Respawn really work with the community.
They're fantastic.
But yeah, the actual bow itself, like we're not starting off negative. Because the bow's really, really cool. Like
it is great, and
using the bow is really cool.
That's the thing. You'll hear from people like Imperial Hal. Most people, you should probably know who he is a TSM pro, and he's been in the community for a long time. And the first thing he said was that the bow is really, really fun, and he loves it. He thinks it's a great addition to the game. But then, obviously, he highlights that there are a few things that make this weapon slightly on the OP side. Okay, more than slightly. So yeah, I'll let you. I'll see if you can like pinpoint a few of those. What do you think makes the bow a little bit OP?
I think it is the projectile speed's too fast, so it's basically feels like a hit scan. That's one. I'd say damage is too high when it hits. You don't. I mean, if it did get nerfed, it doesn't. You don't have to nerf every one of these things. These are just potential things.
Yeah, for sure.
So damage, projectile speed. It's quiet. So when you get shot with it, you don't necessarily feel like you've necessarily been shot by something that hard. But then you look at your health and you notice, most of my health's gone.
People are calling it. In the underground, they have a name. Yeah. The Silent Kraber. The Silent Kraber. I love that name because it just sums up exactly, why it is kind of a little bit on the overpowered side.
And it's got hop-ups that make it shoot faster.
Yeah,
that's also it shoots too fast, right? That's the other thing. You think about a Sentinel, you shoot, reload, and then you look down the sight. Have to look down the sight again. You can't keep looking down the sight when you're reloading, or cocking it again. So you can't shoot and shoot and shoot because you're having to take your sight off them to then put it back on them.
Yeah.
Even though it shares the same hop up, you still can't shoot even nearly as fast.
Nowhere near as fast. And that's kind of, I found an image basically comparing both the Sentinel and the Bocek. And we've already mentioned, obviously, both do 70 damage with a body shot. But also, Sentinel doesn't have a fast fire rate. Bocek does. There's no reload time at all. None whatsoever for the Bocek bow. The reload for the Sentinel.
What's it called? The tempos. Called the hop up. The tempo
so was it the tempo? Yeah, Deadeye's tempo.
Deadeye's tempo. Yeah, it makes you shoot even faster. Sentinel, you can put that on Sentinel, but it's so precise and it's not the same because of the way you have to not look down the sight when you're cocking it again.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
With the bow, you can just be like bam, bam,
bam, bam.
bam. With Sentinel, you're like bam. Okay, look down, and then we aim at them again and shoot.
You have to be holding down the aim, don't you?
Yeah.
That's the thing I noticed with Sentinel. Was it Shiv was testing it in the firing range? And you can't aim out, can you? You have to keep your aim on or something along those lines so that the actual hop-up works for it. Whereas with the bow, it's so quick that it doesn't make much of a difference, does it?
No.
There's also no hip fire spread. I don't know if you've noticed. If you hip fire with that weapon, it literally will just hit scan. It'll, straight line. As long as you're aiming at the target, you will 100% hit your shots.
So just off the cuff, what do you think is the best? Just without looking into it too much.
Yeah,
what would be your chosen nerf to fix the bow?
Okay, so I did do a little bit of research, but I don't want to be biased. I went through multiple, and there's one for me that I think just kind of fixes all of the issues, and that is to replace it with the triple take in the care package. Okay. See, the thing is with that is that you don't have to nerf it, because it is a fun weapon. People love it. It's clearly powerful, right? It's probably more powerful than triple take, more powerful than most of the weapons in this game. And I think it would be nice just to find a bow in the care package that is comparative to the Kraber, but a little bit less silent. So Maybe you
Yeah, and
don't do 100. Yeah.
it's also like a really different weapon. Like the good thing about the Peacekeeper being in the care package was the fact that it's like you get a shotgun, you get a SMG type AR something
Yeah.
in the Prowler, or you get the Kraber, which is a sniper, and you don't know which one you're going to get, but you get one of those weapons. Whereas now it's like you've got a
I
sniper,
was gonna
or
say,
well, it's not
yeah.
a sniper, it's a marksman rifle now, isn't it? That's the thing.
One's
That's
a
what changed.
marksman rifle, but yeah, I know. Even though there's a discrepancy between how they're termed, they're both in my mind snipers, right?
Yeah.
One can be used a little bit closer up. Kraber you can't really use as a shotgun. Triple take you kind of can to a degree, but
Yeah.
most players would use it at kind of mid to long range, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, kind of, I think that would be my favorite fix. I don't think it will be the fix they opt for. A couple of the other ones that were suggested. So Nakoko Puffs, who again, shout out to Nakoko. He has YouTube and also he's a big Twitch streamer. Really good. Go check him out. He mentioned in a tweet actually. So one of the fixes could be to decrease the fire rate between shots. So obviously make it a longer time between each shot, so you can't just spam shots one after the other. Another one would be to reduce the ammo stack. So right now, apparently you can pick up 48 arrows per stack.
Yeah,
so he thought, oh, that's a lot, right? Because the problem is you can just keep spamming so many arrows. So he said to reduce that down to 32.
Okay. In my head, I think the time machine shots is really an important thing to change, but change it in a way that it just takes longer to pull it all the way back. Because then if it takes long to pull it all the way back, that's you want to get a full damage shot, but if you don't want to do a full damage shot, you can spam it a bit, but it's not going to do much damage. And also just maybe make the projectile speed slower, so that when you do hit a shot, it's like, wow, I managed to do it.
I think there should be like a not a damage drop off at range, but the bullet velocity, it shouldn't just be like a direct hit scan shot. It should drop off after like maybe 200 meters or something along those lines. So once you hit a certain point, the arrow just doesn't go straight towards the enemy without them hearing it or seeing it, right?
Yeah. I just think if you have to lead it a lot and then you hit shots, it'll be really satisfying, but it'll also make it less powerful.
What do you think of the damage? Do you think it's too high, or do you think it's fair for an arrow which, if you were to hit someone with, you probably would pierce through their armor, right? You would hurt them significantly if you hit an arrow.
Yeah, but then you could say that.
Yeah, but it's not realistic. It's a game. Yeah. That's the thing. It's not fair to draw like realistic comparison. So again, Nakoko mentioned that maybe they should knock body shots down to 60 and then headshots down to 90 from 123.
Maybe.
Which could be fine as well. And then the last one is to decrease its spawn rate. Because right now, obviously, what you're finding, especially in the BR, not so much arena, maybe in the arena, I haven't seen it too often, but in the BR, you're having the entire team at the end game circles with a bow. So like
you can just buy it, right? And so it's like, okay, I'm just going to buy the bow because it's quote unquote
because it's quiet,
OP, right?
And as much as I kind of dislike third partying, it kind of kills the possibility of being able to third party so much, because if you can't hear fights in the distance, it just allows those two teams to have an extra advantage of using a bow, where they can finish their fight if they're better players and don't have to worry about another team. So they don't even have to strategize as deeply as you would normally if you're using like an R301 or any kind of weapon that makes a lot of noise. So
yeah, definitely.
And then the last one, I think this is another really cool one that somebody entirely different commented, and they mentioned a reloadable quiver. So every 6 to 8 shots, rather than just being able to keep spamming shots, you have to reload your quiver. So I think that's neat. Just something small. It doesn't really affect it doesn't affect what you're doing so much, but it makes you have to think and stop for a second rather than just being to stay in the same position, right?
Yeah, I suppose when you think about something like the PK, the Peacekeeper, that I've used that recently and it's super powerful, but the reload speed is so slow, and that's what makes up for it being so powerful, right? That's fair. Like,
is it the G7 Scout that I've seen as well that does that? I'm sure I've commented on that in the past. That like I'll miss 20 shots with that weapon, and then I'll go to reload, and then the reload takes me like another minute, and I'm like, oh Christ, I'm dead. This is just me donezo.
But that's good. It's like it's like, okay, if you hit your shots, you do loads of damage. If you don't, then you're going to reload and it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
which is fair. Whereas the bow, it's like if you don't hit your shots, you keep shooting because eventually you'll hit a shot, and that one shot will do a lot of damage, and you'll basically kill them.
Yeah. Can we talk about just one cool little side note thing? I think it's kind of cool to end on a positive because we started with one. So I was thinking, with regards to the bow again, how do you think it compares to bows that you've used in other games, if you have used the bow in any other game? Like
I've used the Overwatch bow, obviously Hanzo.
Hanzo, right? Yeah.
Or have I used it in anything else? Not really.
See, for me, I'll have used it in Overwatch, like you say, and then again, I've used it in Crisis back in the day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, Crisis had a real. I think this is probably, in my eyes, the best, because I've not used bows all too often. I used them back in Turok back in the day. I don't know if a lot of people will remember that.
I used it in Turok.
Turok, right? Yeah, where you'd be shooting the dinosaurs, like, ow! But I can't really remember like what the bow was like in that game, to be honest. But like, yeah, maybe Hanzo's the best comparison. I think Crisis had a really nice bow, and then a couple of others have had like crossbows that just don't really feel very impactful. They're slow, they're sluggish, which is what I'm scared of these nerfs doing. Because I think the bow is really fun.
I've used it in things like Rust.
Yes,
survival games.
Survival games like Daisy and.
You aim at where you want it to go, and
it'll stick there for ages.
Really short.
And then you'll just be holding it for ages, and then when you turn with the bow, it'll feel really slow and sluggish.
And but it always drops short, right? You aim where you want it to go, and it drops short. So I suppose having it a bit more hit scanny is nice because it's nice. That feeling of like, oh yeah, it goes
smooth,
well. Smooth,
isn't it? You feel like where you're aiming, and it takes away that like it doesn't kill the fun factor when you're like having to aim in, and then you think you're on point, and then it drops off. Like I love PUBG. I love that it's hyper realistic and that the snipers do have bullet drop off. I think it suits that game perfectly. But for Apex, I think it just. I like the fact that you don't have to worry too much about recoiling guns, right? There's a little bit of a focus on it, but that doesn't dictate the kind of gunplay or the engagements.
No, there's a lot more movement based. It's not down to just the way the guns move. But then, saying that, I think after our discussion, maybe just making it so you really have to pull back the bow really in quite a timely manner. It takes quite a long time, and then when you do release it, it's still that sort of same speed because then it hits them. And you're like, okay,
the actual
that did lots of damage, and I put a lot of power into it, and it was like, really satisfying.
So the damage and the actual speed or the hit scan of the actual arrow is the same, but then you just have to be a little bit more thoughtful about like when you peek and stuff, rather than just being able to peek out, spam 5, step back in, peek, spam out, hit my elbow, that hurt. Okay, before we move on to the next topic, because I don't want to like bore you into listening to us for 5 hours straight. You can if you want, though, if you want to stick around. The last thing I want to talk about is the other hop-up, because no one really mentioned it a whole lot. So it's comparative to, was it Hanzo's scatter shot in Overwatch, right? I've not yet had the chance to use it. You can explain it probably better than I can.
Yeah, so Hanzo's scatter shot used to bounce.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So that was super great.
We've seen the memes, haven't we, where they have the question marks and
it's like if I put this, and it bounced back up and it would be horrible.
You'd insta-kill people, wouldn't you?
Well, they took it out of the game, so that's
that was OP as well, ironically.
But the thing is, this doesn't. I don't think shatter caps makes the bow better. It makes it into like a shotgunny type, shoots like scatters. Yes, it is what it says. It just scatters out.
Best comparison's probably to draw with the 30-30. You can put the shatter caps on as well, right?
You can, but I think that is more relevant because the 30-30 close up
was not great close up, yeah.
Whereas the bow close up, it's not.
It's not
perfect.
As good as it is at range, but I had a few instances.
Well, put the shatter caps on because then you hit that one shot and it still does loads of damage close up. Whereas 30-30, it's really hard to hit that close up shot. I find it harder. I don't know why it is. I think it's because you need that charge up, right?
Yeah, because you have to charge the weapon up. I don't know as well, because you've got like a big sight, and I think that takes a lot more up of your screen room. Whereas obviously when you use the bow, I don't know, it's a thin object, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
But I've not really used it. I thought we'd mention it quickly in passing. I think we'll talk about it again maybe in the future once I've had more time to actually test it out and see what it's like up close and stuff. There was one other little thing I've got here written. Can't remember where I put it. Oh yeah, I don't know. This is just such a random comment that I saw that I was like, I'm going to write that down. So somebody mentioned with regards to the bow, and I don't think it relates to the weapons as such, but they said that the bow is very left eye dominant and right-handed for right-handed people. So for people that have a more dominant left eye and are right-handed, the bow is better suited to them than it was for somebody that is has better like vision through their right eye and uses their left hand.
Okay, fair.
I don't really know how to like discuss this because I'm right-handed and I don't even know if I use my left eye more than I do my right. But then
Okay, so put your hands out in front of you. Okay, take your thumb and forefinger of both hands and put them together so that it makes a little diamond.
Okay.
Put them really close together.
Yeah, okay.
And then put that out in front of you.
Am I meditating?
Put that in front of you.
Yep.
And move it towards your face until it ends up, and it's focus on what's through the diamond, what you can see through the diamond. Okay, don't look at the diamond, look through the diamond. Move it all the way to your face until
I'll do my left first, or do I do it with both?
Just do it towards whichever eye you're looking through.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking through my left.
So that means you're left eye dominant, I think.
Oh no, I was... hold on, let me try again.
Just look through it a distance away from your face and look through the diamond, and then move it towards either your right eye or left eye, whichever one feels more natural.
I think my left eye. I don't know. It feels like I gravitate my left arm more. Yeah, I don't know if that's right.
It's scientifically accurate.
We're very scientific, aren't we, on this podcast? Obviously, we don't leave any stones unturned. No stones unturned on this podcast. No. But yeah, it's just a random thing that I saw in passing. I thought it was cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, go on.
That could be a thing. I don't know if anyone's...
I've never really focused on it. It's not something I've really noticed. I think it's something to do as well with the bow taking more of the right side of the screen up, whereas most guns are in the middle a little bit more, I think, aren't they?
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
I think that's probably why this person mentioned that. I thought that was cool. Next topic, Valkyrie. There we go. Valkyrie was the new addition to Apex Legends in Season 9, the Legacy Season. And then I'll give you a little bit of background on who she is. So her name is Kairi Imahara, or Imahara. I don't know how to pronounce it very well. And what she did, we've seen in the trailer, she stole her dad's Viper. Oh, she stole her dad. His name is Viper. His Titan, which is the North Star. And I think she went out with it because she really wanted to be like him. And then after that whole escapade happens in the trailer, then her dad gets sent on a mission by Blisk, Commander Blisk, who's very prominent in the lore, Titanfall lore. And then he never comes back. He never returns. And from that moment on, Kairi, she kind of goes off the rails a little bit. And she starts transporting cargo kind of under the belt, and then she starts drinking a lot more. But she's always had in the back of her mind that she wants to get revenge on Blisk because she gives him accountability for sending her dad off, who she never saw again. So she wants to go after him and kill him. But when she finally does meet up with Blisk again, he has nothing but mad respect for Viper, her father. And because of that, she sees, okay, he was respect and love, and he wouldn't have sent him out unless it's something really important. So then, still having a little bit of a vendetta, she shoots, but she shoots his glass, if I'm correct, and that shatters, and then she steals the Apex games card, and then she decides she wants to join the Apex game and prove herself as a pilot. One thing to note, she is a pilot, however, she's a ship pilot and not a Titan pilot, hence why she doesn't have her own mech, like obviously North Star, Viper, her dad's mech, and she actually just flies a jetpack, which was built by Rampart, which is the VTOLs, I think.
Okay.
There we go. I don't know much more. Okay, I might have completely butchered her story. I've done that a fair few times with stories, but that's kind of like the basic knowledge that I have of her from watching the trailer, at least. So yeah, let's get into the abilities. Let's get into your experiences, because you have used her a fair ton at this point in both Arena and the BR. I've not used her. I've still not yet to use her, and I do this every time a new legend comes out. I like to kind of just test the waters, see what people are saying. So yeah, I'll let you kind of talk first.
Yeah, sure. So she's got her passive, which is her VTOL jets, which she uses to fly up, and you can put it onto before you play it. Just go into your settings and change it so it's not toggle but it's hold. That's really important. So it starts off where it toggles. So you jump, and then if you jump again, it'll toggle on, and then you jump.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah.
If you stick it on hold,
yeah, you can just
jump, and then you can just hold it down, and you can, when you're flying, then.
So before you would have had to tap it and then tap it again with the spacebar with the button.
Yeah, and then every time you tap it again,
you get an animation, don't you?
The jetpacks stay on until you tap it again. It's a bit clunky.
Okay, a bit like how a lot of shooters used to be, whereas nowadays in most shooters the default is to hold the aim down, right? Whereas
Yeah, it's
before you'd
exactly
have
that.
toggle aim, wouldn't you? And then you'd have to toggle it off again.
Yeah, so it's exactly
Right.
that with a jetpack. You want it on hold, you know, because then you get a lot more control about where you're flying and how much fuel you're using and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because you've got a fuel gauge on the right-hand side of your screen, don't you? So
Yeah,
she consumes that fuel, and then what? She just drops back down to the ground.
yeah, and it's important to
Right.
note as well that you can't shoot while you're using a jets, but if you
Yeah.
fly up really high and
You
then
can use
cut
a
the jets
missile
out,
swarm,
you can
can't
get a
you?
you can use a missile swarm, which is their ability. That's her Q. I think it's most people use. I use like a mouse button, but so yeah, her Q is the missile swarm where she shoots out all the missiles out of her back into
Hmm.
a big rectangle in
It's like
front
a
of her.
grid, isn't it? So I've seen that like the first missile does 25 damage, and subsequently all the other ones do 3 damage. But it shoots in like a 4x3 grid or something along those lines, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that's important when you're playing against her and playing with her as well. You know, you because it's a rectangle and it's away from you a lot in that sort of long direct, you know, lengthways rather than across you.
Hmm.
If you're running away from it, you don't want to run away from her because running away from her is more, you're more likely to get caught by them. You want to run to the side of her,
Oh, okay. It
which
might
is probably why.
explain why I've probably been caught out a lot by her, which is just, it's nice to have the information and know a lot more about her abilities now, because if I'd have known that in advance, maybe I could have avoided getting caught in her stun quite often.
Yeah, which is probably why I've not ever been caught by a stun.
Yeah,
In,
yeah, you mentioned that so many
today, I've never
times.
been stunned,
So you
and
should
you've
go
been stunned many times.
sideways rather than forwards.
Yeah, so if you think about it, it's 3-3-3-3 away from
Yeah,
Valkyrie. So, which means obviously it's like 4 in length.
right, yeah.
So by running away, you're running almost like running away from a falling tree. If you think of trees falling towards you,
You go,
you
yeah,
don't
you
want to
wouldn't
run
go
away from
straight
it. You want to run
forward,
to
would
the side
you?
because
Yeah.
otherwise you're running the whole length of the tree, right?
Which gets onto my question. I'm assuming then with a missile swarm, she can only do it she can only fire it directly in front of her.
Yeah. So
Kind
you
of, you can't use A and D to kind of send it left a bit more,
no
right
no
a
no.
bit
So
more.
you just send that
You
grid
use your
where you want.
mouse, do you, and you put the grid kind of like directly in front of you, sort of thing.
Yeah, but you can aim
Right.
it somewhere, but it's where you're looking. You know.
Yeah, it's where you're looking. Sorry, that was probably what I kind of.
Yeah.
That's what I had in my head. It just didn't come out in words.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I kind of think her passive, her VTOL jets are really cool. I like the fact that you can use that to kind of like reposition on high ground. Because for me, I've always mentioned it. One of my biggest tips for like any Apex players is to really focus on taking high ground. And I think it's so cool that she can do that. Not only just kind of up build it to scale buildings. She can use it to kind of go up on top of rocks and like different surfaces that most people wouldn't conventionally stand upon or be able to get up on top of, which is nice.
Yeah, and she can use it all the time, and she doesn't have to use. It's like think about her Horizon. She has to use her ability and then go up, and she can take a team up.
Yes.
Great, ideal. But think about Valkyrie is she can go up, and then she still has some more fuel left in the tank, so she can fly to somewhere else.
She can
Or
fly a little bit higher again or
yeah,
something along
exactly.
those lines. So it's
That's
not
quite
just
good.
like once you've put your Horizon Q down, you're kind of stuck to going up in that vertical, direction. And if you've not placed it quite right, then you're gonna hit an object or you're just not you're gonna be out in the open still, or you're not gonna be able to jump to the next object. Whereas with her, because it's a jetpack, you can choose the trajectory, and then if it's not quite right, you can adjust it again.
Yeah, and there's a few important things to know. Is one, they're loud. They're like
Yeah.
every time I use
mention
it,
it every time.
Jordan goes, oh, was that you? It's like, yeah, it's me.
It confuses me because like I'm like, what on earth is that? Do you know what it sounds a little bit like? What are the ships called on Kings Canyon? The ones that you land on that have all the loot.
Oh, the big loot, yeah, the big flying loot ships.
Like the supply ships or supply ships.
Yeah.
It reminds me every time one of those hovers above you, you're like dun 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 dun, dun and you're like, Christ, impending doom. And then obviously you hear her like using a VTOL jet, and you're like, oh, it's loud.
Yeah. So there's that. The fact they're loud. So
yeah,
sneaking up on somebody is not ideal. There's the fact that you have to get the handles, I suppose you call them, for the jet out and put them away between when you do the animation.
before
so
you get your weapon out, right? So there's
yeah,
like
exactly.
a little
So
delay
you
of
think
1
about
second, isn't there?
Yeah, think about it like Loba when she throws her bracelet.
This is old Loba,
Yeah,
potentially.
old Loba.
They've changed
Yeah.
it since then.
It's still a bit the same, but
It's still a little bit of delay, yeah.
It was a big delay. Like when
Yeah.
Loba used to be, you throw the bracelet, and
You'd
then
have
there's
to wait
big
a
delay
second or
between,
two, and then you'd
putting the bracelet back on and shooting.
you'd be there
The same
watching your
sort of thing.
watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same sort of thing with Valk. It's
Yeah.
you fly, you stop flying, you then have to put the little handles away so that you can get your gun out and shoot. And
So
that
with
can
that, you
be
can't just VTOL and just drop on someone's head, right? So combine that with the noise. If it was quiet, you could literally just jetpack up above over a building and say the team was on the other side of it and land on somebody's head and just destroy them straight away. But because you've got that delay and the noise, it's kind of a little bit more off-putting to be 100% aggressive.
yeah, that's the mistake I sort of keep making with her is
Yeah.
playing it a bit too aggressively and sort of flying into people's face. And she's she feels like she's got quite a big hitbox, quite easy to shoot, and she flies quite slowly in quite a
Yeah.
straight direction. So when
Again, a
you
lot of
actually
people compare her to Farah, but I think she, like Farah from Overwatch, for anybody who haven't played Overwatch, is also has jetpacks and she flies around and she kind of like strafes a lot. But I actually think she's a lot more like Diva from Overwatch, who has this thing that flies kind of like in a circle, not a circle. Do you know what I mean? Like a moon motion, per se.
it's not like she can fly. It's like she can't quite fly. She can sort of
Yeah.
just blast off in a direction
Glide. She
and then drop.
glides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a chicken.
Like a chicken, yeah. It's like
Chickens can't really fly. Where
they
can sort
can't
of
really
in
fly,
one
but they can
direction.
kind of do the
Yeah, no.
without the noise. Like, yeah, I should never do a chicken noise again, Christ. But the other thing so obviously we've mentioned the passive. We've mentioned a little bit. We've touched on the missile swarm. I think the missile swarm's really cool. I like the idea of it. The only thing I don't like is the stun. But again, I think that could be a topic in itself, which I'll speak about other legends and just stuns in general. So I'll probably touch on that the next time. But the other thing's obviously her ultimate. And I actually, when I first saw this in the trailer, or when they first revealed the character, they showed that it was going to be like a redeploy balloon. And I was like, oh, that's cool because you can reposition. But it is so much more than that, isn't it?
I thought it was going to be like, okay, you can redeploy fine, but it's like it's her ultimate. It's supposed to be something really cool, and okay, let's fly over there, and then we're.
It doesn't seem like omnipotent or all powerful, does it? Really. Yeah. But in actual practice of having seen it being used, and then obviously flying up with you, for one, you can get crazy elevation with it. Obviously, you have to, like, the risk is that you maybe get shot just before you go. But what I've actually found from doing my research is that if nobody's coming towards you and you don't want to waste your ult, you can press your ult button again and it'll cancel it and you'll get refunded 70% of your 75% of your charge. So it's not like a big cost. And then secondly, once you actually do elevate, like, yeah, you're just miles into, was it like 180 meters into the sky or something along those lines? That's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, but it's also that is not what's powerful. That
isn't the crazy bit. Yeah,
it's not redeploying that's powerful. It's not flying around the map because that's just what it is, right?
That's just like a balloon, right? Which is in itself, like when you take the balloon up and you redeploy, that's great. You cover so much ground with it.
But you get shot off it, and then you're flying, and people know where you are.
Yeah,
it's quite annoying.
With this, it's harder to get shot.
You know where they are, right? So there's the special ability where when you're flying.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
She scans everyone around her and puts a little green triangle around them, which I thought was okay, fine, because when you're landing in, it makes it so that you don't land somewhere and don't know there's someone there, and then they rock up. But actually, when you use her ult, I didn't realize when you use her ult, she uses that as well, and she scans people, not that people that are flying, but people that are on the ground.
Yeah, so she scans people on the ground. The one kind of thing I will mention with that is that she doesn't scan people that aren't in her line of sight, from what I've been told. So if they're like in a building or if they're behind like rocks, they won't be scanned. But the amount of times that I've taken obviously the ult with you or seen people using it, and she'll scan like 1 or 2 teams, that's enough, right? Yeah. That one team as information is equivalent to scanning with Crypto's drone. The difference being is that they don't know that you're scanning them, right?
Yeah, they don't know you're scanning them. And if you think
it's a one-way thing.
Like, jumping on people with an octane. When you jump with someone on octane, you don't know exactly where they are. With this, you know where they are straight away.
Yeah, exactly. You know precisely where they are. And like going back to Crypto's drone, the other team can hear the Crypto drone. They know, okay, he's within 200 meters of us. So then they know that there's a team in their vicinity. With her, unless you're low enough to the ground that they can hear you, like redeploying in, like they are so clueless until maybe you've landed on a building and then you've got an advantage over them, right? Like, I saw Shiv doing it a lot, so he was playing solo. Well, not solo, he was playing with teammates, but mostly solo. And he was purely using her ult just to redeploy so he could just fight team after team after team. Because, you know, if you want a kill chase, like, she's going to be amazing for that.
Yeah, it's hard to say where she'll fit into sort of a meta type thing, but at the moment, her ult doesn't I haven't used her ult in an arena, it doesn't seem to suit the arena so much, but I mean, it could work. But actually, like, just having her abilities and being able to get the high ground is power in itself. Like, there's so many heroes or legends that you use in the arena that their abilities are fine for the arena, but hers just work. You know, not without thinking about the ult, the other abilities just work perfectly for the arena. And I find myself actually buying her Q ability.
And you don't get that with a lot of the legends in the arena. There's a couple that I don't like. Octane's, I'll only take his like ability so that I can go and pick up supplies. Because otherwise, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose because you're within close vicinity anyway. But the other thing that I actually saw pros drawing a distinction saying that Valkyrie may not be the best for ranked because there's not really so much cohesion or people don't land at certain spots, but they think that she is going to be most effective in competitive play because they think that people will be able to use her to redeploy, which then will allow you to get certain positions very quickly early game. And she's also going to be good for kind of scouting the area a little bit more. She can also use the recon beacons. So not only has she got all of that, but she can use survey beacons as well, which is mind-blowing.
She's great. And she's fun. She's not too, like, in your face.
I like that. I was scared she was going to be a little bit like Pharah's in Overwatch. Every time you see Farah, you're like, oh god, there's a Farah on their team. She's there raining down missiles non-stop, and it's just like a constant barrage. I like the fact that she has a missile swarm, which is one thing. If she hits, it's a bit of a pain. Like, I'm not going to lie, it is dejecting. I've mentioned a few times how much I, like, dislike it from not playing her. But I also see that if somebody is not good at using it, then that's all she's got in the air, really. She's not got much else going for her, and she's taken out of the battle in the same way that Crypto is taken out of the fight when he's using his drone, so...
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's super cool, to be honest. So yeah, I think we talked a lot about the bow, we've talked about the arena in general, we've talked about Valkyrie. Before we end the podcast, we were going to quickly touch on, it's entirely up to you if you want to do this or if you want to save it for another podcast. If you want to talk about just the arena and like the first round and like what weapons you like to pick up.
I think that's good for next week. I think we opened next week with what, after playing for another solid week, what is our go-to?
What's our meta? What's our meta? What we think will be the overall meta in terms of legends, weaponry, kind of play styles.
Yeah. Opening round. What do you buy? And you know, is it map dependent? Is there something you always tend to vote towards? I think that would be a good start.
Okay, excellent. I've really enjoyed this. Yeah, it's been nice talking with you. I think we kind of covered so much ground here. I hope for all of you who are either listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube that you got some valuable insight into the Apex Arena, into Season 9 in general, and that hopefully we can discuss more in the future. If you would like to carry on watching the podcast, you can follow me on YouTube at Jordan Cecil, and also you'll be able to find us under the Apex Arena podcast on Spotify. So feel free to check out either of those social platforms. Anything you'd like to say before we leave? Well, we're not leaving, but I mean, we'll still be in our rooms. But
look forward to this again next week, and we'll see you all in the arena.
Cool. So just gonna say, we'll see you in the arena. We will, and please don't bully us. Like you said that as if we were like the most intimidating foes they'll ever come up against.
Hey, we nearly beat Masters players.
We did. We nearly. That will be like our defining moment of nearly beating Masters players. But yeah, just to let you guys know the structure of the podcasts, we're probably going to try and do this on like a weekly basis, if you're cool with that, Kusti.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we'll try and make this like a weekly thing. At worst, it'll be a bi-weekly thing. But then we'll just keep talking about all things Apex. So thank you very much. And until next time, have fun in the arena. Peace. Bye-bye. Goodbye.